Welcome to Thrive Radio. I'm your host, Amy Montgomery, entrepreneur and digital marketing agency owner. Today, my guest is Frank DeLuca. He is an entrepreneur and engineering solutions specialist with a passion for innovation across industries like aerospace, automotive, and manufacturing. He's inspired by his family and driven by a mission to empower others. Frank has developed unique products like the WedgeMaster and StoolPak, combining creativity with technical expertise. Join us as we explore his journey from engineering to entrepreneurship and his vision for inspiring others to dream big and make a meaningful impact. Frank, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Amy. I appreciate it. And I look forward to being here.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about where you got started from being a basketball player with dreams of making it big and your story around that. And how did that whole experience that you walked through lead you down the path of engineering?
Yeah. So growing up as a child, I love sports, right? I played in as many sports as I could. Basketball was my favorite. As you said, I blew up my knee, and that was a very tough point for me. And I really had to focus on what did I want to do with my future. I already had an inspiration to be great, and the NFL and the NBA were out of the question at that time. So my next best thing was what schools can offer me the best opportunity moving forward. And that's when I started looking around and looking at which degrees I could switch to from business. And engineering is where I landed at. And ended up going to get a Purdue University engineering degree.
So then you end up going to Purdue and
Yes.
you go to start working at Caterpillar
Yes.
and then you go into software. What drove you to make that shift and how did all of those experiences like, prepare you for your future?
Yeah. So what's great about mechanical engineering and the School of Engineering itself, it teach you on all sorts of aspects, whether you're going for civil engineering, software engineering, mechanical engineering, and then being able to have the mechanical engineering background to understand how processes and flows work, and then being able to take those like physics per se and fluid dynamics and be able to take and understanding the concept behind those and the frameworks and applying them into software because software is the future. Software is not going anywhere. It's always improving. It's always developing, and it's the future. So it's great to go into a path that I know that's never going to go away. With a lot of mechanical engineering, think about it like an engine. Right. So car engines, they're all mechanical, right? You got the pistons, you got the crankshaft, you got everything making the energy. But what are we changing to? We're changing to software, going to electricity, trying to figure out how we can convert the energy to make it more efficient and not have to have all those mechanical properties.
Can you explain and share a little bit more of your background? And I want people to really know your vast experience across niches and that journey because it's a wild journey where people have just been stealing you right and left.
Yes, no, that's a great point there. Yeah, so when I started at Caterpillar, I built a great name for myself in the 4 years that I was there. And I utilized a software to automate their processes, a software called 3D Evolution. So during that time, when I built the software out, I was working with the engineers at Core Technology. They were training me on the tool, but then I took their experience and excelled it one step further. Like I said, started automating processes at Caterpillar. And I got noticed from the VP of Core Technology named David Selman and started talking to him a little bit about because a position was opening up. They had a sales guy who was leaving. They also had an application engineer that was leaving. He saw my personality and he saw the fact that I'm able to work and talk to people personally as well as improve the processes in the meantime. So, with that experience that I had and with my personality, he was like, I really want you on board. So, what's funny is I had two opportunities. I had an opportunity to move up the ladder at Caterpillar or to move over to another opportunity at Core Technology. And I was actually given an offer at both positions. So now my options were do I move to Illinois or do I stay and work remote for Core Technology? And I love the opportunity to work remotely. So this is actually back before COVID. So since 2018, I've been working remote, been working out of my home office. It's been very nice. I've been very lucky. But with that experience, so I was able to go over to Core Technology and then the same solutions that I was implementing at Caterpillar, I was able to implement in a lot of different companies around the country. I can't name some of those companies per NDA, but let's just say that I was able to work on projects where I was able to help launch rockets and put them on the moon. So it was really cool to have that experience. And then while I was working at Core Technology, my previous boss at Caterpillar actually called me back and it said, so it was 4 years of Caterpillar, 4 years of Core Technology, got the call, says, hey, I want you back. Right. So I developed such a skill set and such a big name for myself that I was just getting bounced back and forth. And it was a great experience to have that. So then I took over the role back at Caterpillar. I'm helping them improve their processes, writing different applications to help streamline a process. that's basically improving the workflow that's saving millions of dollars a year for Caterpillar.
Amazing. So then you go into consumer products. How did that happen?
Yeah, no, that's a great point there. I have a family. I got 3 kids. I got a wife. Kids are very expensive. I'm sitting there, I'm creating such a big name for myself. My salary only still incrementally jumps. Now, there's not a big jump in salary. So now I'm out there. What can I do? I'm seeing people drive Lamborghinis, driving Ferraris around, got these people with mansions, reading a little bit about how people are doing it. And I'm like, oh, people really are being self made millionaires. I think there's a report that 80% of millionaires right now are self made.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, I have an engineering background. I'm very personable. What can I do to now utilize these skills and bring whatever it is to the market or something that I can start bringing in passive income? So I started doing some research. And then basically, after a couple of weeks of research, I was into 2 different industries. Do I want to go into 3D printing? Because I was really heavily into that at core technology. Or do I want to move over to product based with Amazon and Shopify and things like that? So bouncing those back and forth, it was always a tough decision. I really enjoyed 3D printing and I had a lot of experience in it, and I had zero experience in launching products online. But when I was looking at 3D printing, I'm like, God, do I really want to spend the time cleaning the prints up, removing the supports from the print? So there's a lot of extracurricular activities that come from 3D printing. Like I can streamline the process, but there's still a lot of manual work that goes into it. And that's never going to go away because
Yeah.
it's just part of, until you start hiring employees and things like that. So looking at that, and I was like, all right, e-commerce is more of a passive income type opportunity once you start getting in and scaling properly. So that's when I started doing some research. I actually paid to take an online course. I went through the whole course. I was blown away. He did a really good job. I really enjoyed learning from him. And then I launched my first product, was successful, hit about 20,000 in revenue. And then that's when I started researching. All right, so now I need a bigger product because I was a very simple, very generic. Like, all right, I just wanted to prove the concept, see if it works, and it did work. The funny thing is, the second product I launched, I actually deviated from the process, and I was unsuccessful. I was proving to myself, like, hey, if you do something out of your plan, there's most likely it's not going to go to what you plan it to be.
Yeah.
So you really got to make a plan and work that plan. That's really big to being successful. Product 1, good. Product 2, not so good. All right. And now we're on to product 3. So what's our big product? Because product 1, I feel like was cheap. So
Yeah.
yeah, I proved that it can work, but it wasn't the quality that I wanted. But like I said, it was something I can jump into. It was easy. It was a little bit cheaper. So it was working well with my budget. And then as for me, I really liked golfing. It's hard to find the time to golf, especially when you got 3 kids.
Yeah.
So I was looking around, looking at different products, looking at products on Amazon, looking at products on Google. What's out there? Like, a lot of golf equipment's really expensive, but then a lot of even though it is expensive, there are some really cheap products that are still pretty expensive. I'm like, man, there's really no like perfect product out there, especially with a good high quality mat with the ability to work on your short game. So if you ever listen to golfers like John Daly and Tiger Woods, they always say when you're getting into golf, you should focus on chipping and putting. Right? Those are the most critical aspects of the game. I think there's a statistic out there is like 70% of your shots come from chipping and putting. Because essentially people who are getting into golf, they want to be able to have that big drive. Oh yeah, I drive the ball 300 yards.
Yeah.
If you think about it, you're only hitting that driver 14 holes around, maybe 16, because there's usually 2 to 4 par threes throughout the 18.
Yeah.
So it really didn't make sense to find something that's going to help my driver out. I was like, I need to work on my short game because as a amateur golfer, my driver, I don't hit it very far. I hit it maybe 250, but I worked on short and straight, right? Short and straight. So between 225 and 250, I'm going to try to be in the fairway. So now my most critical shot is that second shot. So you want to be able to take it from the fairway and put it onto the green. As an amateur golfer, it was very tough to put the ball into the green. All right. So my second shot was usually short, left, long, or I'd duff it 2 feet in front of me. I got to rehit it again. But so for the times that I hit it a good shot, but I'm short of the green. So now I'm hitting 3, right? So I'm hitting for birdie and I'm trying to chip it next to the pin. Chipping is a very skilled challenge because you have to have a nice smooth swing and it's not your full swing. So you got to have a good motion and it's got to treat it like a pendulum essentially.
Yeah.
And it's
And
very
you get into
easy.
the full swing at first, that's where your focus is,
Yes.
and you're all into it and you got that what it feels and everything. And then you go and you have to switch.
Yes, it's tough. It is very tough. And especially do I do a half swing, a quarter swing? And then you start throwing in different clubs like a 60 degree, a 56, your pitching wedge, an approach wedge. So there's a lot of different angles on your clubs. So if you're hitting a pitching wedge next to the green, you're going to only hit maybe 30% of your full power. If you're hitting a 60 degree by the green, you're using like 80% of your full power. But if you don't have a consistent contact with the ball, you hit that 60 degree at 80% full power and you hit it wrong. If you, what we call tone the ball, that's when the bottom of the club hits the very center of the ball. So it's not hitting the angle, it's hitting the bottom of the club.
Yeah, I hate
And it
that.
goes skyrocketing straight across the green. So now what was like a 10-yard shot to the green? Now I'm like 30 yards on the other side of the green.
Yeah.
And that happened way, way too often. So that was a big challenge. So like I was out there on the hunt trying to find a good solution. And a lot of the products like they had just really cheap mats. The mat would move. It was just foam. It just wasn't very durable, very flimsy. And so that's when I started using my product-based engineering and went to work and tried to utilize my processes that I had set up and try to find the perfect product. And then that's where I came up with the WedgeMaster. It's a fun version. It's like your top tier golf experience at home, right? So you set it up in your backyard. You can put it in your house. You set up one target. You set up the two targets it comes with, and then you got your one mat, and then you start picking some friends up. Now you're playing 9 holes. You're trying to get 3 balls per hole so you can get the lowest score possible.
I love it. And you made my Christmas gift for this year for myself.
Yes, yes, exactly. And that's the biggest thing is, for Christmas, lots of parents. I had over hundreds of parents last year who bought these specifically for their kids,
Uh-huh.
and they loved them. And then what's funny is there's a couple kids that my son plays soccer with, and a lot of the parents actually end up buying the Wedge Master. And one of them was like, "Yeah, we actually keep it set up all the time. When we're just like after dinner, we're just bored. We just go over there and start chipping balls. Like we're just they're working, and it's just fun. Just sit there and chip and play and have a good time because it doesn't take up a lot of space." And it looks pretty clean. The whole set itself doesn't look like a big target mat essentially that you have in your home, like some driving ranges or some golf simulators are.
Yeah. And I absolutely love golf and I get addicted. I'll go off to Top Golf because I'm there. I don't have to be like out by myself or whatever.
Yep,
And they have food
exactly.
and it's
And drinks.
Texas. There's air conditioning.
That's the
Like
biggest thing.
they at least blow the fans, right? I'll go
Yep.
out there in 100-degree weather until my hands are numb, right?
Yep.
Seeing this, I when it's hot out, I could be doing this.
Exactly. And the same thing for like here when I'm in Indiana. I can go to Top Golf in the wintertime and they have all the heaters, which is really nice.
Yeah,
Only challenge is it's very expensive.
yeah,
So this is a good solution to be able to have the fun, be able to have your drinks and your food at home and have a whole guest and a whole party come over and be able to play indoors in your basement, in your garage, wherever you want to set it up at and have a good time doing it and not have to worry about breaking all of your valuables around the house and decorations. And that's the key thing for parents looking for a fun thing for their kids. Now, how can I have a good set that my kids can work on their hand-eye coordination, but still not break anything in the house? And with
yeah.
the foam golf balls, it gives you both.
I love it. So now you've also have a new invention, the stool
Right.
pack.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that. What inspired you to develop it, and how it is really how it's different. How you came across it differently from
Yeah,
the.
yeah. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I love the stool pack. I will say it's probably by far my favorite product, and the feedback that I've gotten has been unmatched. People absolutely love the stool pack. So for me, as I told you, I have 3 kids. We go to a lot of sporting events. So there's times when we're trying to pack up the car for the sporting event, right? I got 5 of us that we're packing in a car. So we don't have a car. We got a nice little 3-row SUV, but we don't have a Suburban, right? Not many people can afford the type of Suburban. So it's hard to be able to fit everybody in the car while also being able to fit all the stuff and all the gear for the games, right? Because you got 5 people, you got your chairs, your coolers, you got the umbrellas, the tents for the kids, you got all their game stuff. There's just a ton of different bags that you can pack. I wanted a solution that you can have your cooler and your bag all in one, and then you also don't have to have the wagon to drag your chair out to the games. So like when we would go to the games, we would pack everything in the car and then including the wagon, pull the wagon out, pack everything in the wagon, pull the wagon across this grass or dirt or rock location, and that's always a hassle in itself. And we're just like, there has to be a better solution because then I still also have to have my backpack cooler on my back for my ice cold drinks and my snacks for the kids.
Yeah,
So I'm like, what could we do that can make this whole situation better? So I started doing a ton of research, utilizing the same processes that I've developed, set up this blueprint to work through the entire process. And then that's when I came up with the backpack cooler chair. I was like, ooh, I really like this. And then I actually started talking to some friends about, hey, what should I call this? What should I? And one of my friends actually was like, you know what? I like the StoolPak. And I was like, ooh, I was like, that's cool. I really like that. So yeah, we launched the StoolPak because I already had a chill pack backpack cooler. So now we got the chill pack backpack cooler, we got the WedgeMaster, and then the StoolPak. So the StoolPak, really excited about. I started the design about March of 2023, and then we finalized the production about March of 2024. So it took about a year to get the design right. I went through 6 different prototypes because I had to test different steel frames. I had to test different cooling insulation or the cooler insulation, different pockets and styles on the front to give you everything that you need, but still providing a good sleek look that's very modern. Because people don't want something that looks very bulky and it just looks like it's just jumbled together, right? It has to be very clean, very professional. It was tough to find that good in between to where you're not breaking the bank, spending a ton of money on manufacturing, but still keeping it very modern and very clean for the customers.
And you were saying it holds 500 pounds?
Yeah, so the seating capacity itself on the chair holds 500 pounds. So anything else on the market is about 350 to 400 pounds. So that's where spent a lot of time working with the steel manufacturer to make sure we can get a good steel frame that can hold up to 500 pounds. Because there's a lot of, let's say, people out in the world that there's a little bit larger set and they'd be able to have somewhere to sit, have their cold drinks, especially when they're going out fishing, hunting, hiking. Think about someone who's a little bit overweight who wants to get into hiking, right? So now if they're out in the woods and they get tired and they have nowhere to sit, it's tough because then they got to go sit on the ground, get all dirty. Now they can have the confidence to go out and go on these hiking trails and have their ice cold drinks and a place to sit while they're just carrying it on their back. And it's very lightweight and it even has the hiking straps too. So it doesn't put all the stress and strain on your shoulders, right? It's right here across the chest. So there's a lot of assets that I put into there to make sure it hits a lot of different markets and keeps everybody satisfied.
I love it. And with your first product, you've had over 500 customers when you launched in October 2023, and
Yes.
you sold out multiple times. What strategies, and I know that people are going to love this question because everyone wants to know, what strategies have been most effective in growing your brand and engaging your customers, especially when you're first starting out?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I'm really big into reading books. Actually, I don't even like to read, so I listen to all my books. I've put in over 14 full days of audio time in the last year just to make sure that I understand I have a foundation when it comes to selling and launching products. One of my favorite books was called the PLF, the Product Launch Formula. And it's a really good book that really breaks down each step of the product launch and it helps you get people excited about a product coming out. Then it gets into the open cart where you're able to start launching the product, getting in front of consumers' faces. And then now how to also take in all those leads that you're getting from people going through your website and how to nurture them, keep them motivated, keep them excited, and understanding what type of brand you have and what type of products you offer. So it was a whole process. I utilized the PLF formula on top of also attending a lot of trade shows. You talked about I sold out the StoolPak, right? So at prototype number 4, I had ordered 20 of them, brought them to a show, sold them out real quick. People loved them. So then I ordered my next batch. Like it took me a while to get my manufacturers to let me order 50 of them, but we actually ended up ordering 80 of them. So during that time, right when they started production and for my prototype number 5, in January. By the time it came April, I already had 50 of those 80 stool packs sold. And I did those basically from in-person events and then using the product launch formula to nurture leads, get them excited about the process. And that comes with different email campaigns and things like that, text campaigns. I'm not spamming them all the time. I'm giving them good information about not just my product, but about the industry. So when they're reading about my product, they're also learning about the industry that kind of makes my product fit really well into it and gets them excited about that type of solution.
I love that. So you're passionate about creating products that are highly functional and innovative. How do you balance that functionality, the design, and marketability?
That's a great question. It took a lot of time because coming from an engineering background, I'm very perfectionist. This has got to be perfect. So how can I make this perfect and still cheap? And that was very tough for me. And really just jumping into launching my first product really opened my eyes. Like the product does not have to be perfect, right? Because I knew there was a lot of issues with it. It was hard for me to just overcome and just launch it, right? I just wanted to see what would happen. And that it was a really big challenge. And to be able to see that people are still willing to buy this product. Yeah, the return rate was a little higher than I anticipated, but it still was close to the national average of returns. So I wasn't doing so bad.
Yeah.
But then just knowing that having such a cheap, like not quality product and being able to still sell a bunch and continuously sell them and even get customer referrals because people are still excited to be able to use the solution, that's where I really knew that don't overachieve, really try to find that middle ground that you're hitting all those requirements that the customers are asking for, but you're still keeping it cheap that's affordable for the customers to be able to purchase it. Because if you go too high and too expensive, well, either one, I'm hitting into my profits, or two, the customers aren't going to be able to afford the products.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when bringing both of these products to market? And was there any particular moment that you had a pivot in your strategy?
I'd say one of the biggest challenges that I ran into, that's a really good question. So the first one I would say is Amazon. Amazon is always a big challenge because you have to be very precise, persistent. And then so when I launched a second product under a different brand, they actually flagged my account. So once they deactivate your account, you got to go through all these hoops, all these steps, and there's a huge process to get approved essentially. And they don't always make it the easiest, but I'd say that's probably one of the biggest challenges. So understanding like when you're launching a product, make sure you have every step planned out in detail. And then especially if you're launching on someone else's platform, go read through their guidelines. So if you're doing Facebook advertising, make sure you go through all their guidelines on what they're looking for. So then your account's not flagged, and then now you're wasting time and you're essentially cutting into your profits. So the fact that I didn't go through and read every single detail on Amazon, like, hey, this is what I need to do. So I basically found out that it was some information on account one was similar to account two, and they saw that and they flagged it essentially. So it's like that's a big challenge, and that's something hard to get past. But it's definitely staying persistent and then consistent with that process and then understanding what they're looking for. And that, like I said, it's all going through and making sure you do your homework and reading through their guides because they put it up for a reason.
Yeah.
So definitely do your homework and make sure you stick to the plan.
So you've started a mentoring academy for aspiring inventors. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what inspired you to create it and the key lessons or guidance that you hope to share?
Yeah. So I've always been someone who wanted to help people out. All right. So I enjoy seeing people succeed. And so I always try to be very motivational, people very positive, try to keep a positive outlook on life, even for my kids. Like I don't talk about the negative stuff. It's always looking at the positives. So I started the academy to promote that anyone can really get into launching a product, right? It's just you got to be dedicated, focused, and ready to learn. Because it's if you try to go off on your own, which I told you with product number two, I tried to do it on my own, even though I had a lot of the steps, it failed. So like a lot of people, they read some things on the internet, they see some YouTube videos, and they're like, "Oh, I can implement that. I can do it." And they're getting bits and pieces of the process, and then they don't understand how to plug those two pieces together
Yeah.
to form those phases as one. And that's where a lot of the challenges come into play. And so I really wanted to be able to help people reach their goals, right? So I would love to have a lake house for me and my kids one day. And that's essentially what I'm working for. And I want to be able to provide that type of opportunity for other people. Because I want thousands of Americans to be able to say, hey, I quit my 9 to 5 and I have a whole passive income job and I'm only working 10 to 20 hours a week and it's successfully running itself.
Yeah.
And that's really been an inspiration for me and because just understanding the whole process. And then I took because the course I took was specifically on Amazon FBA, so I was trying to utilize that and expand it even more.
Mhm.
And because I took that process to help me develop my products, but then now I'm doing it a little bit on a larger scale to where I'm doing in-person events and things like that. And then I even go as far as trying to apply for shows like Shark Tank and things like that. So that was really fun. And I actually made it to phase two of Shark Tank. So I almost was on the show of Shark Tank with the WedgeMaster golf game. And that's something that I had no clue how that process worked. It was stressful going through the whole thing. And there's definitely a lot of pieces looking back that I failed on.
Yeah.
So if I can now provide the tools for someone to take their product, launch it on Amazon, launch it on Shopify, have a whole e-commerce scaling and growing, and then now take that same product and then go through the whole Shark Tank process to try to get on Shark Tank because I can actually help people streamline that process. 'Cause I know exactly what they're looking for now.
Yeah.
So it's a big difference. So that's what I'm really excited about, just to see people growing and learning and just I enjoy watching people be happy.
I love that. What do you think motivates you to keep on innovating and pushing boundaries?
My family, my kids, definitely just showing them that no matter what you get and what task you have at hand, you can conquer it, right? So I started a business from nothing, from just an idea, talking about, man, it'd be great to have this, it'd be nice to have this. And then I see it, my kids have seen the whole process from literally having nothing where I'm just working at Caterpillar, working at Core Technology full time, to where now I'm working that business on the during the day. Then on my night hours when I'm not out there practicing soccer, practicing baseball with them, I'm in my office sitting there working just to show them that, it takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication to get to where you want to go.
Yeah,
Because a lot of kids, a lot of this generation, they're very entitled. They want this, they want that. Even my kids too. Hey, I want this gum. I want this candy. I want this. I want that. I want the soccer ball. I want the soccer goal. I want this hockey stick. And it's, what did you do to earn it? Have you done anything? Did you do anything at home? Have you been working extra on your soccer skills? Like, what have you done to try to earn this? And that's what I try to portray onto them. Like, nothing's for free in life. Whether
yeah,
you think it's free, there's some price being paid in the back end that you don't see.
yeah. What do you think has been your truth that's gotten you this far in your journey?
The truth, that's a good question. I'm really consistency and then staying persistent, right? So I make sure I always set a plan before I really start jumping into it because I got to understand the kind of the full scope. And then when I set that plan, I really work through that plan because when you set the plan, there's going to be a lot of variations. You're going to go from point A to point C to point B to F and then E. So you're going to be jumping around some, but as long as you set the plan, you can get in a general direction. Think about it as if you're going on a trip to Florida. If you're driving from New York to Florida, what do? First thing you do is you get the maps, right? What is the map to get me from destination A to destination B? And it tells you step by step how to get there. Because if you try to go looking at the old map, like the old, let's say the 60-plus-year-olds used to do, all right? Because I'd say we had a little bit of map quest, right? When I was a little bit younger, my parents were driving us around. But a little bit of the older generation, no, they literally had to have their atlas out
Yeah,
looking at like, oh, all right, we're trying to look for Interstate 70. Where's Interstate 70? I don't know. I think, okay, I think we're about 10 miles away. So it's a lot more challenging back then. But with all the tools that you have today, you can streamline setting up your process and your plan and then work in that plan. So that's number one. And then number two is people look at failures like it's a problem. And all failures are is a lesson, right? So if you fail at something, you really only lose when you quit. So the big thing that I always try to tell people is failures are just a lesson. You just failures are a good thing because that's how you're trying. If you're not trying, then you're not failing. That means you're not going anywhere. So that's the biggest thing that I really try to tell my kids too. We're all human. We all make mistakes. We're all gonna fail and miss something. As long as you learn from that and don't do it again, then we're still taking these lessons and moving forward.
yeah. And entrepreneurship is such of a mind shift
Yeah.
as well. Like it's such a challenging to all of our every limitation that we possibly could have is challenged.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely. If you're able to give yourself one piece of advice when you first started out, what would it be?
I'd say just don't be afraid to take risks. Taking risk is essentially how you really excel in life. To me, honestly, one of the worst drugs out there is comfort, right? There's a lot of people, a lot of Americans right now, I'd say a good 70% of Americans, they're just comfortable with where they're at. And to me, that's more risky than not taking a risk early on. Because if you take the hard road now, the road later is going to be easier. But if you keep taking the easy road now, when you start hitting that retirement age, you start stressing out. You start worrying about little things like, am I going to have enough money to go for the next 10 years and I'm not working? And there's a lot of things that you don't want to have to worry about later. And the thing is, even though I'm going through and I had that one product that failed, that was a lesson, right? I learned from that lesson. I learned what not to do, and I can take that and move forward. And I think a lot of people, what they struggle with is when they hit that failure, oh man, this product was unsuccessful. I don't know if I have it in me to do this. And then they quit. So a lot of entrepreneurs, they stop working towards entrepreneurship in year one or two. They hit one or two or three failures and they're just like, I'm done, throwing up the hands. I can't do it anymore. This isn't meant for me. I'm going to go on a different direction, going back to my comfort place, going back to that comfort job. So that's one of the biggest things I would have advice for anyone who's getting into it. I I keep pushing on this. Failures are just learning opportunities. It's an opportunity to grow. You only lose when you quit. And that's the biggest thing that people got to realize. Failures are just a life lesson that you need to really be great. And that's one thing that I think people are scared to fail on. They just don't want to be a failure when in all reality, at least they're trying. And that's the thing. If you're not trying, you're not going to be going anywhere.
Yeah, you just have to fail fast and pivot.
Yes. Yep. Yes,
Fail
exactly. Fail
as
fast
fast
and
as you
pivot.
possibly can and pivot as fast as you possibly can. I think back, like when I've been in situations where I've failed, it's usually I've pushed something too long.
Yeah.
I've stayed in one spot just wanting it to work.
Yeah. That's a
You
good
know?
point. That's a very good point.
And you just push and push and it's not working. And then
Yeah.
it's not until you take a step back and just be like, just cut your losses and
Yeah.
shift.
And that's a good point because there are times when I put timelines on some processes too. If I'm trying something, I'm trying, like he's failing. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this for 4 more hours. I'm going to do this for one more week, right? I'm put a timeline on this now. Like I haven't got anywhere. I'm going to put a timeline on it. And then now if I hit that timeline, nothing happens. Like you said, move on to the next task, right? Now we'll just go on to the next one. And that's really hard for people to do because ego comes into play, right? Oh, that's my idea. I can't mess up. I can't do this. Put the ego to the side. It's okay. Let's move forward. Let's go on to the next task
Yeah.
and see how we can work that plan to make it better.
Yeah. I love that. So, Frank, if there are individuals that are interested in working with you, maybe your academy or checking out your products, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, you can go directly to my Instagram. It's the Frank DeLuca, and you can contact me. You can DM me. We can talk about the process. I can explain how the process works. Not everybody, is in the opportunity to be able to go through the academy, just because there's a lot of variables that come into play. But I'm always open to learning about what you're working on and how I can help you, whether it's in the academy, whether it's launching your first product, or even just mentoring you through kind of some decisions that you need to make. So I'm always open to working with anyone who wants to grow and become a better person of themselves. And if you want to learn a little bit more about my products, DD Sports, D as in dog, so ddsports.us. That's where you can find a little bit more about my products, about the industry, and then thewedgemaster.com is the perfect game for you to be able to work on your short game at home.
Perfect. I'll put all those links down below. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your expertise.
I really appreciate Amy.
Yes, definitely. If you're listening, you want more information about this podcast and upcoming shows, you can visit acalltothrive.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.